Let's get something straight right away. The system isn't designed for everyone to win. In school, they hand you a timetable, ring a bell to tell you when to eat, and drill you with facts you'll forget a week after the exam. They grade you on how well you memorize, not how well you think. If you don't fit the mold, they label you a failure. Well, but here's the truth. Dropping out of school doesn't mean dropping out of life. It just means you've chosen a different starting line. And sometimes the dirt roads lead to the biggest treasure. See, the world loves a polished story, Ivy League degrees, fancy resumes, high marks, but real success, that's built on grit, not grades. Imagine you're 16, no qualifications, no fancy plan, just a pair of work boots, a few tools, and a job that pays less than you to an hour. That's not a head start, that's rock bottom. But here's the funny thing about rock bottom. It makes a great foundation if you know how to build. You don't need a degree to spot an opportunity. What you need is hunger. Well, hunger to learn, hunger to work, hunger to prove the world wrong. And if you've got that, you're already ahead of half the people walking around with their heads full of theory, but empty on action. That's what winning looks like at the start. It's not glamorous. Well, it's early mornings and late nights. It's failing your first few attempts. It's selling one product at a time while others laugh behind your back. Well, but you keep going because deep down, you know something they don't. You see the game differently. You see a gap in the market, and instead of waiting for someone else to fill it, you roll up your sleeves and dive in. That's how a kid with no qualifications ends up opening a small model shop. Nothing fancy, just radio-controlled planes, boats, maybe a few helicopters. But he treats every customer like royalty. He learns how to sell, how to market, how to manage stock. Every mistake becomes a masterclass. And that little shop, it grows slowly at first, but momentum builds. He reinvests profits, learns about cash flow, builds a brand. Eventually, that shop isn't just a place, it's a business. And not just any business, a multi-million-pound company built from scratch, no degree, no blueprint, just stubborn effort and common sense. Let's talk about that for a second. Common sense, it's underrated. The world is full of smart people doing dumb things, borrowing money to buy things they can't afford, ignoring customers to chase trends, scaling fast instead of scaling right. But if you've got common sense, you've already got a competitive edge. You know the value of a pound. You know that listening beats talking. You know that every big win starts with a small, boring task done right. Most people want shortcuts. They want to hack the system. They look for the elevator success. But here's the problem. The elevator is out of order. You've got to take every step. Every sweaty, exhausting, sometimes discouraging step. That's how it works. You earn your way up. You don't wish for it. You work for it. And when you finally get there, when the business is thriving, the numbers look good, the bank balance is healthy, what do you realize? It wasn't the money that changed you. It was the process. The discipline you built when no one was watching. The confidence that comes from betting on yourself. The skill you picked up through trial and error. Those are the real assets. The world loves to tell you who's going to make it. They point to the kids with straight A's, the ones with the best connections, the ones who tick all the boxes. But the truth is, the underdogs, the misfits, the so-called failures, they're the ones who build things that last because they've got something to prove. And more importantly, they're willing to do what others won't. Well, they'll mop floors if it teaches them humility. They'll sell door to door if it sharpens their pitch. They'll work a job they hate just long enough to save up for a chance to do what they love. That mindset, it's unbeatable. You don't need permission to succeed. You don't need a diploma, a wealthy uncle, or some influencer's approval. You need the ability to learn from failure, the courage to try, well, and the work ethic to back it all up with relentless action. That's how high school dropouts become millionaires, not by accident, not by luck, well, by deciding they're done living life by someone else's rules, and they're ready to build their own path brick by brick. Everybody wants to be rich days, but nobody wants to build anything real. They'll scroll through social media looking for the latest crypto trend, drop shipping secret, or flashy passive income scheme. But while everyone else is chasing shortcuts, the real winners are building things that actually last. Not overnight profits, not digital hype, but real businesses, brick by brick, sale by sale, customer by customer. See, before the flashy watches, the sports cars, or the freedom to work from anywhere, there was a dusty workshop. There was a little storefront. There were problems to solve and bills to pay. Wealth didn't come from a viral video or a trending hashtag. It came from knowing your customer, offering real value and doing the job better than anyone else. Traditional business is where real skills are forged. You learn how to sell, but because no sale means no food on the table. You learn how to manage money because every pound counts. You learn how to market, how to lead, how to solve problems without crying to the internet for help. Every day is an education, but the kind that actually matters. Most people underestimate how much power there is in running a small business. They think if it's not on the Fortune 500, it's not worth mentioning. But let's be clear, some of the strongest, most consistent income streams in the world come from businesses you walk past every day: the local car repair shop, the family-owned store, the guy with a small warehouse and a phone that never stops ringing. You don't see them on social media, but their bank accounts are doing just fine. You know why traditional businesses work? Because people still need things. They still want to buy from someone they trust. They still value good service, honest pricing, and products that don't fall apart in 5 minutes. While everyone else is busy trying to build the next app, there's someone out there making 6 figures fixing boilers, installing solar panels, or selling equipment to hobbyists who don't care about trends. They care about quality. That's the beauty of it. You don't need to be a tech genius. You don't need investors in suits shaking your hand in glass buildings. You need a product or service people actually want and the discipline to deliver it well every single time. Well, but let's not sugarcoat it. It's not easy. Traditional business doesn't give you likes and shares. It gives you long hours. It gives you customers who don't always pay on time. It gives you moments where you're staring at your bank account wondering how you're going to make payroll next week. But every challenge sharpens you. Well, every setback teaches you something school never did. It's in those moments, the quiet ones when no one's clapping for you, that you grow. You start to understand that real wealth isn't by chance. It's made by systems. Systems you build through trial and error. How you take orders, how you manage returns, how you deal with suppliers, how you handle complaints without losing your cool. That's the stuff they don't teach you in business school, but that's the stuff that makes or breaks your future. And when it finally clicks, when your processes are tight, your margins are healthy, your reputation is solid, you've built a money machine, one that works with or without the internet, one that survives fads and fluctuations, one that puts food on your table, builds equity and gives you leverage. Now, here's the part most people miss. Once you've built a traditional business, then you can scale, then you can invest, then you can automate. Not before. You use the income from something reliable to fund the next phase. You don't skip the foundation and go straight to the rooftop pool. You build from the ground up because that's the only way it lasts. People talk a lot about passive income, but what they don't tell you is that passive income is built on active effort. Years of it. Late nights spent solving problems, early mornings spent fulfilling orders, weekends sacrificed so that one day you don't have to trade time for money ever again. But it starts with something real, something that works whether you're trending or not. And the truth is, when you build a business that can survive without algorithms, influencers, or hashtags, you're free. You're not dependent on platforms. You're not at the mercy of some CEO changing a policy that tanks your traffic overnight. You've got real customers. Well, real income, real control. And you did by understanding a simple truth in wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you build one sale at a time. Most people hit their 50s and start slowing down. They tell themselves it's too late to change, too late to learn, too late to keep up with the younger crowd. They settle into routines. Complain about the good old days and watch the world move past them one app at a time. But here's the thing about the digital world. It doesn't care how old you are. It only cares about one thing: can you bring value to the table? There's this false idea floating around that social media, online content, and digital success are a young person's game. But that's only true if you believe that technology is about dancing trends and memes. The reality is, the internet rewards clarity, consistency, and experience. And nobody has more of that than someone who spent decades building, failing, and learning the hard way. So imagine this. You've spent 30 years in traditional business. You've built real companies, managed real customers, handled real problems that couldn't be solved with an influencer collaboration. You've earned every penny the long way. And then out of nowhere, the world shifts. Suddenly, everyone's on their phones. TikTok explodes. YouTube becomes the new TV. Podcasts take over the radio. The rules change. Now you've got two choices: ignore it and become irrelevant, or learn the new game and play to win. Most people in their 50s choose the first option. They write themselves off as if learning something new is reserved for the young. Well, but the smart ones, the hungry ones, the ones who never stopped growing, they see opportunity. Well, they realize that everything they've learned over the last few decades is still valuable. It just needs a new delivery system. That's the digital shift. It's not about changing who you are. It's about translating what you already know into a format the modern world understands. You take years of experience managing money, and you turn it into short, sharp advice videos. You take your old mistakes, the deals that went south, the investments that paid off, the habits that cost you years, and you tell those stories to an audience that's desperate for real guidance. You show up on camera not as some perfect internet guru, but as someone who's lived it, who's earned the right to speak. And that's what makes it work. Because in a sea of 20-somethings preaching hustle culture, selling dreams they haven't lived yet, someone with grey hair and real scars stands out. The honesty, the authenticity, the been there, done that perspective, it cuts through the noise like a blade. The tech itself isn't complicated. Anyone can learn how to post a video. But the mindset, that's where most people get stuck. They think it's too late. They think people won't listen. They think the camera is only for the young. But all of that is just fear disguised as logic. The truth is, if you've got value to give and the courage to show up, the digital world will open its doors, no matter your age. Yeah. The secret is to stop trying to be trendy and start being useful. You don't need flashy edits or viral dances. You need substance. You need stories. You need a message that actually helps someone, whether it's how to build a business from scratch, how to manage your money without going broke, or how to turn failures into lessons. There's someone out there who needs to hear it, and they'll respect you more because you've lived it. It's not about acting young. It's about acting real. Now let's talk about the upside. Once the digital shift, your reach explodes. You're no longer limited by geography, store hours, or foot traffic. You're building a personal brand that works while you sleep. Your content gets shared in different countries. Your words impact people you'll never meet. And your story inspires someone who's ready to give up. That's the power of digital scalability with purpose. And the best part, you can monetize your experience in ways that didn't exist before. Online courses, brand deals, product sales, affiliate income, consulting gigs. It all becomes possible when you build an audience. And that audience isn't looking for perfect. They're looking for real. They're looking for proof that it's not too late. They're not behind, that someone out there took the long road and still made it. Every time you post, you chip away at that old narrative that says people in their 50s should slow down. You replace it with a new one. This is just the beginning. You show people that your age isn't a limitation. It's a weapon. Your experience is your leverage. Your story is your brand. Your voice is your asset. And what started as an experiment, a simple decision to give it a try, turns into something far bigger than expected. You're not just mastering the digital world. You're redefining what's possible for an entire generation watching from the sidelines, wondering if it's too late to start over. We live in a time where people get financial advice from guys standing next to rented Lamborghinis. They'll tell you to invest in coins you can't pronounce, flip NFTs that no one wants, or drop your last paycheck into some mystery box business model that promises a yacht by the weekend. It's all noise, flashy, shallow, and designed to separate you from your common sense. But here's the true thing. Real financial education isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's not sexy. It's boring. And that's why it works. The people who actually build wealth don't chase hype. They chase habits. They don't care what's trending this month. They care about what's sustainable for decades. They know that compound interest is more powerful than charisma. That budgeting beats branding. That keeping more of your money is more important than showing it off. The reason most people are broke isn't because they don't make enough. It's because they never learned the basics. No one ever sat them down and explained what a tax bracket is. No one taught them how to read a bank statement or track their monthly spending. They know how to use 5 different delivery apps, but can't tell you the interest rate on their credit card. And that's not their fault. It's the system. School teaches you about ancient volcanoes and 18th century poetry, but not how to manage your paycheck. It prepares you to follow instructions, not build wealth. So unless you're lucky enough to have a parent or mentor who gets it, you're left figuring things out the hard way after the debt piles up, after the rent's overdue, after the emergency fund never got started. That's where no gimmicks financial education comes in. No fluff, no jargon, no condescending lectures from someone who inherited their wealth and thinks everyone else should just invest in real estate. This kind of education comes from people who've been broke, who've made dumb money mistakes, who've learned what works by actually trying it, not Googling it. And here's what that kind of education sounds like. Don't buy things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people who don't care. Start by tracking every penny that comes in and goes out. It's not glamorous, but it'll show you exactly where your money is leaking and where you're lying to yourself. Build an emergency fund before you build a stock portfolio. Because when life hits the fan, and it will, you don't want to be cashing out investments or begging your credit card to save you. Don't try to get rich quick. Try to get rich consistently. Fast money usually leaves faster than it came, but slow, steady money, that's how you sleep at night. Learn the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes it out. Most people think their car is an asset. It's not. It's a shiny debt machine. Understand interest rates like your life depends on it, because it does. Interest can either make you richer or bury you. If you're earning it, you're winning. If you're paying it, you're bleeding. This is the stuff people need to hear, not because it's flashy, but because it works. It protects people. It sets them up for real freedom, not the kind you rent for Instagram, but the kind where your bills are paid, your sleep is deep, and no one owns your time but you. But people don't want to hear this. They want excitement. They want the thrill of the next big thing. They don't want to hear that wealth is built on discipline, not dopamine. That it's made from saying no 10 times more than you say yes, that it's choosing long-term gain over short-term ago. And that's why so many people stay broke. Well, because they fall for gimmicks. They think if something sounds complicated, it must be better. But the truth is, the more complicated something sounds, the more likely it's built to confuse you and probably cost you. No gimmicks financial education strips all that away. It says, here's what I did. Here's what I learned. Well, here's how you can do it too, if you're willing to be patient, smart, and a little bit boring. It's about learning to think like an owner, not a consumer, asking the hard questions. Well, do I really need this? What's my row? What happens if this income dries up tomorrow? It's about building systems that make your money work harder than you do. And it's about being honest with yourself, even when it hurts, because if you want to build real wealth, you've got to trade in the gimmicks for grit. Forget the fantasy. Focus on the fundamentals. It's easy to chase money. Anyone with a Wi-Fi connection can try and make a quick buck. But chasing money without purpose is like running on a treadmill. It feels like movement. Well, but you're not actually going anywhere. That's why the smartest entrepreneurs aren't just thinking about how to make money today. Well, they're thinking about how to build something that lasts long after they're gone. And that means thinking about legacy, not legacy in the ego-driven sense of putting your name on buildings or writing a memo no one reads. Legacy is in what am I passing on? Not just to customers or shareholders, but to my kids, my family, the people who matter when the cameras are off and the likes stop coming in. A business that's built with legacy in mind looks completely different from one that's built just for profit. When you're building for legacy, you think long-term. You're not cutting corners to save a few quid, if it's going to cost you reputation tomorrow. You're not chasing every shiny opportunity. You're focused, strategic, solid. Well, because what you build needs to stand the test of time, not just impress strangers online. Family is the cornerstone of that thinking. It's easy to get caught up in hustle culture and for why you started in the first place. But when your kid walks into the room and asks what you do for a living, well, what are you going to say? That you're flipping trending items on the internet, that you've got 100 side hustles but no direction? Or are you going to say, well, I've built something real, something you can be proud of, maybe even a part of one day. See, when you involve your family in your business, something shifts. The stakes get higher, the standards get tighter. It's no longer just about earning, you're leading by example. You're teaching without preaching. your work ethic becomes their benchmark. Your resilience becomes their mindset. And without even realizing it, you're shaping their future. It doesn't mean you force them into the business if they're not interested, but you create the option. You build a business that has room for them, a business that could one day be a place they choose to join, not because they have to, but because they want to. And in the process, they learn everything school doesn't teach. How to deal with difficult customers, how to negotiate, how to manage time, manage stress, manage people. They see firsthand that success doesn't from being the smartest in the room. It comes from being the most consistent, the most honest, the most adaptable. When your family sees you running a business with integrity, with patience, and with real backbone, they start to internalize that mindset. You're not just providing them with income, you're handing down a blueprint, one that teaches them how to earn, how to save, how to think like a builder, not just a spender. Most people are stuck in survival mode. They build a business that depends entirely on them, and the moment they stop, the whole thing collapses. That's not a business. That's a cage. Well, when you build with legacy in mind, your goal shifts from being the center of the operation to creating systems, structures, and culture that run without you. It's about teaching your team, maybe even your kids, to handle the key parts of the business so that it's not just your name on the door, it's your values in every decision. That's how a business becomes a legacy. It keeps reflecting your principles even when you're not in the room. And let's be real. Working with family isn't always smooth. There are disagreements, different personalities, generational gaps. But if you handle it right, those differences become strengths. You bring experience, they bring perspective. Well, you know what's worked. They know what's coming next. It's a two-way learning street, and that's rare in business. It also forces you to build better habits. Well, when your kid is in the room, you don't cut corners, you don't make shady calls. You start to realize that every decision is a lesson they're watching. You become more thoughtful, more measured. You stop operating on impulse and start operating with purpose. And purpose is everything when it comes to legacy. Well, you're not just building for the next quarter. You're building for the next generation. You're creating stability in a world full of uncertainty. Well, you're planting seeds today that someone else will harvest tomorrow. And if you do it right, your business becomes more than just a source of income. It becomes a part of your family identity, a source of pride, a training ground, a safety net, a launch pad, and maybe one day, years from now, someone with your last name will sit across from a client or a customer and carry on what you started. Not because they had to, but because you built something worth continuing. There's a big difference between someone who's read 100 books about money and someone who's lost it, earned it back, and learned every lesson the hard way. The first one quotes facts. The second one teaches from scars. The internet is flooded with experts who've never actually done the thing they're teaching. Well, they'll tell you how to start a business without ever running one. They'll talk about investing with zero skin in the game. They'll sell you a course on how to succeed when their own income depends on convincing you they've already made it. It's all theory. Neat in a presentation, useless in real life. But when someone teaches from experience, you feel the difference instantly. The advice is sharper, simpler. No fluff, no jargon, just raw lessons forged through mistakes, risks, and real result. What works, they've seen more, and more importantly, what doesn't. They've been on the edge of failure. Well, they've felt the pressure of bounce payment, the sting of a bad hire, the weight of building something from zero. And because they've been there, their advice is rooted in reality, not fantasy. Experience doesn't need to be dressed up. It doesn't need charts, slides, or 12-step frameworks. Sometimes all it takes is a straight story. Here's what I did. Here's where I messed up. Here's how I fixed it. That's the kind of wisdom that sticks. Well, because it's relatable, it's human, it cuts through the noise. And that's what most people need right now. Well, they don't need another guru telling them to just work hard or visualize success. They need someone to look them in the eye and say, made the same mistake. I've bought dumb things. I've wasted money. I've been broke. But I got back up, and here's how you can too. Because teaching from experience means being honest, not just about what worked, but about what went wrong, the losses, the regrets, the deals that looked perfect on paper, but crashed in real life. It means showing the messy side of success, the part that's not Instagram friendly. Well, it means admitting you didn't have it all figured out and you still don't. You're just a little further down the road. And that honesty is what people respect. It's easy to look successful online. Anyone can rent a car, fake screenshots, or film a day in the life video in front of someone else's mansion. But when you've built real credibility, through time, through results, through resilience, you don't need smoke and mirrors. Your story speaks for itself. And it carries weight because it's earned. The value in experience is that it teaches you what schools and books can't. Like how to stay calm when everything's going wrong. How to speak to people in a way that earns their trust. How to make decisions under pressure without panicking. No textbook prepares you for that. Only real life does. And the best part, once you've learned those lessons, you can pass them on, not as theory, but as tools, real practical tools that actually help someone avoid the same potholes you fell into. Well, you're not trying to sound smart, you're trying to be useful. So when you teach from experience, you're not just sharing advice. Well, you're offering shortcuts to someone who might be 5 years behind you. You're telling them, don't waste time on this. Don't fall for that. Focus here instead. And that kind of help is rare because it doesn't sell hype. It sells truth. Teaching from experience also keeps you sharp. You don't just sit back and coast. You remember what it felt like to be a bottom. You stay connected to the basics. You keep learning because the moment think you know everything, life will humble you fast. You keep earning the right to teach by continuing to grow, to adapt, to improve. And here's something people don't talk about enough. When you've actually lived it, your voice has a different kind of authority. People listen closer. They ask better questions. They trust you not because you're flashy, but because you're real. And in a world full of noise, being real is your biggest asset. It also makes you a better communicator because when you've done the work, you don't need to complicate things. You know how to explain it in plain language. You can break down investing or sales or time management in a way that a 16-year-old can understand. That's what happens when you've lived it. You make it accessible, digestible. Experience gives you context. It helps you spot patterns, predict problems, and prepare others. You're not just reacting to the moment. You're pulling from a mental library of past wins and losses. You can smell trouble before it arrives. Well, you can guide someone through a situation you've already survived. And that makes your lessons powerful. Well, because they're not just ideas, they're instructions backed by real life proof.